Ladies and gentlemen, today I invite you to reflect on a love that transcends the ordinary, a love too deep for words, yet eternal in its essence. In the spirit of Stoic philosophy, we explore a love that is not merely a fleeting emotion, but a profound internal state, shaped by virtue, wisdom, and acceptance. Love is often regarded as an emotional force, an unpredictable and uncontrollable feeling that sweeps over us, sometimes transforming us into different versions of ourselves. It can bring immense joy, but it can also cause pain and heartbreak. In many ways, we are conditioned to see love as an external, ephemeral experience, something that comes and goes, something that is not entirely in our control. However, in Stoic philosophy, love is approached not as a fleeting emotion that governs our behavior, but as a deeper, internal disposition, one that is shaped by our thoughts, our values, and the way we respond to the world. For the Stoics, emotions are not to be viewed as mere reactions to external events, but as outcomes of our judgments and beliefs. What we feel is a direct consequence of how we perceive and interpret the world around us. When it comes to love, Stoicism challenges the conventional notion of it as a passive state that we experience. Instead, love becomes an active, deliberate response to the beauty and value we find in another person, grounded not in our immediate impulses, but in a thoughtful, rational evaluation of their character and virtues. To love, then, is not simply to be swept away by a sudden surge of affection or attraction. Rather, it is to choose to focus on the good in someone, to recognize their worth beyond surface-level appearances or fleeting desires. This form of love, rooted in reason and wisdom, goes beyond the impulsive desires that are often associated with romantic attraction. It is a love that sees the potential for growth in the other, a love that aims not to possess or control, but to support, uplift, and encourage the flourishing of the person we love. The Stoics argue that our thoughts are within our control, and that the way we choose to interpret the actions of others has a profound impact on how we feel about them. When we understand that love is not based on mere attraction or external circumstances, we are freed from the anxiety and frustration that can arise when things don't go as we expect. Love, in this sense, becomes a stable foundation, a force that is not tossed about by the winds of external events, but a force that is consistent, anchored in the choices we make and the values we hold dear. This also aligns with the Stoic understanding of apatheia, a state of inner tranquility that comes from the cultivation of wisdom and self-discipline. While this term might often be misunderstood as emotional detachment or indifference, it is, in fact, a state of emotional resilience that allows us to love with clarity and balance. It is a love that does not hinge on a person's perfection or on ideal circumstances, but on a deeper recognition of their humanity, their flaws, and their virtues. By approaching love with an attitude of acceptance, we cultivate a form of love that is not contingent on external outcomes, but on the virtue of the person we choose to love. At the heart of this understanding of love is the Stoic idea that we are responsible for our emotions, that they are not the result of external forces, but of our own judgments. The feeling of love arises not from the other person alone, but from our inner reaction to who they are and how we choose to engage with them. In this sense, love is a practice, an active exercise in seeing the world and others through a lens of wisdom, temperance, and rationality. This allows love to grow in depth and maturity, for it is not dependent on fleeting emotions, but on a stable and reasoned commitment to the well-being of the other person. Moreover, This view of love aligns with the Stoic belief in the interconnectedness of all things. The Stoics understood that we are not isolated beings, but part of a larger, interconnected universe. Therefore, love is not a selfish or isolated pursuit, but something that connects us to others, to the world, and to the greater cosmic order. When we love in this way, we are not simply acting on impulse or desire, but we are aligning ourselves with the natural flow of the universe. We are participating in something greater than ourselves, a force that unites us with others in a harmonious and meaningful way. In conclusion, love, according to Stoic philosophy, is not something that happens to us. It is a choice, a practice, and a reflection of our values and virtues. It is grounded in wisdom and reason, not in unchecked passion or fleeting desires. By understanding love in this way, we are empowered to love deeply, steadily, and meaningfully, without being tossed about by the uncontrollable nature of our emotions. Love, in the Stoic sense, is not a passive experience. It is a conscious decision to embrace the good in another, to see them clearly, and to support their growth in a way that is aligned with our highest values. It is a love that transcends the fleeting and embraces the eternal. In Stoicism, one of the core principles is the distinction between what is in our control and what is not. This dichotomy is crucial in understanding not only how we approach life in general, but also how we approach love. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that we must focus our energy on things we can influence, while accepting with equanimity those things that lie beyond our control. This distinction holds a particularly profound implication for how we experience love. Often, we find ourselves in relationships where we desire things from the other person: affection, attention, loyalty, that are not always guaranteed. Love under these circumstances can become a source of anxiety because we begin to depend on external factors for our happiness. The Stoics urge us to step back from such expectations and instead cultivate a love that arises from within, one that is not dependent on the actions or behavior of others. True love, according to Stoicism, is built on the acceptance of the impermanent nature of life. Relationships, like everything else in the universe, are subject to change. People grow, circumstances shift, and life moves on. We cannot control these changes, nor can we expect our loved ones to remain unchanged. But what we can control is how we respond to these changes. The Stoics teach us to accept the flow of life with grace, rather than resisting it or clinging to it out of fear of loss. This doesn't mean that we stop caring for or loving the people we hold dear. It means that we learn to love in a way that is not dependent on the external or the transient. In practice, this means that we should not place our happiness solely in the hands of others. The Stoic love is not a love of dependence, but one of interdependence. It allows us to love deeply, but without demanding that our loved ones provide us with constant reassurance or validation. Instead, we find our happiness from within, through the cultivation of our own virtues, wisdom, and understanding. When we love from a place of inner peace rather than attachment, we are less likely to be disturbed when the inevitable uncertainties of life occur. We do not love out of need or desperation, but out of a genuine desire for the well-being of the other person. Acceptance also plays a significant role in Stoic love. It is not enough to love when things are easy, when the relationship is fulfilling and joyful. True love is tested during times of hardship and struggle. The Stoic approach to love teaches us to accept the flaws and imperfections of our loved ones, just as we accept our own. We are all fallible beings, and relationships, by nature, will face difficulties. In these moments, it is important to remember that we are not in control of everything. People make mistakes, they act out of their own fears and insecurities, and they sometimes fail to meet our expectations. Yet, rather than viewing these moments as failures or disappointments, the Stoics encourage us to see them as opportunities for growth and understanding. In this way, we are not disillusioned by the imperfections of our loved ones, but instead we respond with patience, empathy, and a deep sense of acceptance. This perspective also shifts the way we experience conflict in relationships. When we accept that we cannot control the actions or reactions of others, we free ourselves from the stress and frustration that comes with trying to do so. Instead of seeking to manipulate or change the other person to meet our desires, we can focus on changing our own responses. Love, in this context, becomes an exercise in self-control, in which we strive to maintain our own peace, regardless of the external circumstances. We are not victims of our partner's actions. We are active participants in creating a harmonious and loving relationship, one that is grounded in mutual respect and understanding. Furthermore, by recognizing that love cannot be demanded or expected, we learn to approach it with a sense of freedom. The Stoic approach to love teaches us to give without expecting anything in return. We love not because we want something, but because we understand that love itself is an act of virtue. It is a choice we make because it aligns with our highest values and is in accordance with the natural order of things. Love, then, becomes a selfless act, one that is not conditioned by the external actions of others, but is a reflection of our own character and our willingness to live virtuously. In conclusion, the Stoic teaching of control and acceptance invites us to love in a way that is grounded, steady, and resilient. It encourages us to let go of expectations and attachments, to accept the impermanence of life and the imperfections of those we love, and to focus on what we can control: our own thoughts, actions, and responses. When we love from this place of inner peace, we free ourselves from the anxieties and frustrations that often accompany relationships. We embrace love not as something we possess or demand, but as something we offer freely, knowing that it is not bound by external circumstances, but by the strength of our own virtue and understanding. At the heart of Stoic philosophy is the idea of virtue as the highest good. Virtue, according to the Stoics, is not merely a moral ideal, but the very foundation of a well-lived life. It is the practice of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance in all aspects of our existence. When we turn our attention to love, we begin to see that the deepest and most enduring forms of love are those that are aligned with virtue. True love, in the Stoic sense, is not about passion or fleeting attraction, but about a genuine commitment to the well-being of another person, grounded in the highest human virtues. When we love someone, we are not just responding to their external qualities or seeking to fulfill our own desires. We are engaging with the essence of who they are, the potential they hold, and the virtues they possess. This perspective transforms love from a mere emotional response into a conscious practice of cultivating what is good, true, and beautiful in another person. Rather than loving someone because of what they can give us, we love them because of who they are and what they represent, both in their flaws and their strengths. In this way, love becomes a shared pursuit of virtue, where both partners are committed to helping each other grow and develop into better versions of themselves. A love rooted in virtue is also a love that seeks the greater good. The Stoics taught that true happiness comes from aligning our actions with nature and reason, and in the context of love, this means seeking the good of the other person, rather than merely seeking personal fulfillment. To love with virtue is to love selflessly, to prioritize the well-being of the person we love over our own desires, and to act in ways that promote their growth, happiness, and flourishing. This kind of love requires a commitment to wisdom, the ability to see clearly and to make decisions based on reason, not on fleeting emotions. It requires courage, the strength to stand by our loved ones, even when challenges arise, and the bravery to face difficult situations with integrity. It requires justice, the fair and balanced treatment of our partner, recognizing their inherent worth and treating them with the respect and dignity they deserve. And it requires temperance, self-control, balance, and moderation in our emotions, actions, and desires. In this sense, Stoic love is not a passive experience of feeling affection for another, but an active, ongoing process of becoming the best version of ourselves and encouraging our partner to do the same. Love is not about seeking to possess or control, but about helping each other grow in virtue and wisdom. A Stoic approach to love requires us to move beyond superficial desires and the fleeting passions of the moment, focusing instead on the enduring qualities that contribute to a flourishing life. It is about making decisions that are guided by what is good for both individuals, not out of self-interest, but out of a desire to live in harmony with nature and reason. When we love in this way, we are also more resilient in the face of life's inevitable difficulties. The Stoics recognized that the world is full of challenges, that things do not always go according to plan, and that suffering is a part of the human experience. But love grounded in virtue is a love that is strong enough to withstand adversity. When we are committed to acting with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, we are better equipped to navigate the trials that life throws at us. We do not allow external circumstances to dictate the strength or depth of our love. Instead, we rely on the stability of our character and our commitment to virtue. Moreover, love rooted in virtue leads to a deeper sense of connection with our partner. It is not based on superficial attractions or external circumstances that can change, but on a shared commitment to what is good and true. When we love with virtue, we form a bond that is unshakable, because it is grounded in something far more enduring than external factors. It is grounded in the essence of who we are as human beings, our capacity for wisdom, for moral growth, for kindness, and for courage. This love transcends the passing whims of passion and lasts through the ups and downs of life, because it is not contingent on circumstances, but on the conscious decisions we make each day to live virtuously. In conclusion, a love rooted in virtue is the truest and most enduring form of love. It is not driven by fleeting emotions or the desire for personal gain, but by a commitment to the growth and well-being of both partners. It requires us to act with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, and to prioritize the greater good over our own immediate desires. By loving with virtue, we are not only cultivating a deeper, more meaningful connection with our partner, but we are also cultivating our own character, living in alignment with nature and reason, and striving toward a flourishing life. This is the love that endures, not because it is easy, but because it is rooted in the deepest truths of human existence. In Stoic philosophy, one of the most powerful teachings is the emphasis on the role of rationality in guiding our lives. While we are all vulnerable to emotions, the Stoics advocate for the use of reason as a means of cultivating inner peace and making sound decisions. This concept extends to love, where applying rationality can help us engage with our emotions in a balanced and productive way. Love, from a Stoic perspective, is not a blind surrender to passion or an emotional roller coaster. Instead, it is an intentional, conscious practice that involves thoughtful decision making, awareness of our desires, and, most importantly, the application of reason to guide our actions and attitudes toward others. At first glance, it might seem counterintuitive to bring rationality into the realm of love, where emotions often seem to run the show. However, the Stoics argue that true love is not about being swept away by emotional impulses, but about acting from a place of clarity and understanding. Emotions, while natural and an inherent part of being human, are not always reliable guides. They can cloud our judgment and lead us to act in ways that may not serve our long-term well-being or the well-being of those we love. In the heat of passion, we may find ourselves making decisions based on fleeting desires rather than on what is truly good for both ourselves and our partner. The Stoic solution to this is not to suppress or deny emotions, but to observe them and respond with reason. Rational love, then, is love that does not depend solely on the emotions we feel in a given moment. It requires us to engage with our feelings, to recognize their presence, and to evaluate them with wisdom. Rather than reacting impulsively to an emotional surge, we ask ourselves, is this love I feel rooted in something deep and lasting, or is it merely a temporary reaction to superficial factors? In this way, Stoic love asks us to be mindful of our emotional responses, using reason to examine whether our feelings align with the true good of ourselves and our loved ones. For example, we might feel a surge of jealousy when our partner interacts with someone else, but rationality allows us to step back and reflect. Is this feeling based on insecurity, or is it based on a deep concern for the well-being of my relationship? By applying reason, we can understand whether our emotional responses are coming from a place of virtue or from a place of fear or attachment. Moreover, rationality in love encourages us to focus on the long-term well-being of the relationship, rather than the fleeting satisfactions that come from momentary passions. It is easy to get caught up in the excitement of a new relationship or the initial rush of love. But Stoicism teaches us that love is not a fleeting experience, but a commitment, one that requires deliberate choices, time, and patience. Rational love means thinking about the future, setting intentions for the kind of relationship we want to cultivate, and being intentional about the actions we take in support of that goal. It is not enough to simply feel love. We must also act in ways that nurture and sustain it over time. Rationality also helps us navigate the challenges and difficulties that inevitably arise in relationships. Every relationship faces its share of misunderstandings, disappointments, and hardships. Emotions can run high during these moments, and it is easy to act out of frustration, anger, or hurt. But the Stoics urge us to maintain control over our responses, to remember that we cannot control the actions of others, but we can control how we choose to react. When faced with conflict, the rational approach is to step back, to listen carefully, and to respond thoughtfully, rather than acting on impulsive emotional reactions. Rational love helps us to remain calm and composed during difficult times, enabling us to engage in constructive dialogue and work toward a resolution with wisdom and patience. Furthermore, rational love asks us to love with a clear understanding of the other person's true character, rather than being blinded by superficial qualities or idealized notions of love. The Stoics warn against the trap of being in love with the idea of love or with an idealized version of our partner. Rational love requires us to see our partner clearly, to accept them as they are, with all their strengths and flaws. It asks us to love them not for what we wish they were, but for who they truly are in their entirety. This clarity of vision prevents us from holding unrealistic expectations and allows us to love our partner in a way that is both grounded and authentic. In addition, applying rationality to love enables us to cultivate the virtue of self-control. It helps us to recognize when our desires or attachments are out of balance and to take conscious steps to maintain equilibrium. In relationships, it is easy to fall into patterns of dependency, possessiveness, or unhealthy attachment, especially when love is viewed through the lens of self-interest. Rational love, however, encourages us to love without clinging, to act in ways that are both generous and self-sufficient. By maintaining a rational perspective, we avoid the pitfalls of codependency and allow love to flourish in a healthy, balanced way. In conclusion, the Stoic approach to love emphasizes the importance of rationality in creating a deep, lasting, and meaningful connection. By applying reason to our emotional experiences, we can cultivate love that is grounded in wisdom, patience, and clarity. Rational love encourages us to act thoughtfully, to prioritize the long-term well-being of our relationships, and to maintain self-control in the face of challenges. It enables us to see our partner clearly, without the distortion of idealization or superficial desires, and to engage with them in a way that is grounded in virtue and understanding. Through this lens, love becomes not just an emotional experience, but a deliberate, conscious practice that contributes to the flourishing of both ourselves and those we love. Stoic philosophy teaches us that everything in life is interconnected, that we are all part of a larger cosmic order, and that each of us is a small but integral piece of the grand design of the universe. This perspective on the interconnectedness of all things is not just a metaphysical idea, but has practical implications for how we live our lives and how we engage with the world and others around us. When we apply this Stoic world-view to love, it offers a profound insight. Love, in its deepest form, is not merely a personal or isolated experience, but a force that connects us to the universe and to all living beings. It becomes a means of understanding and embracing our place in the broader cosmic order and reflecting that understanding in our relationships with others. In this sense, love is not an isolated, ego-driven experience. It is a recognition of the shared humanity we all possess, a recognition that we are all part of the same cosmic fabric. The Stoics believed that the universe operates in harmony and that everything has a purpose within the greater whole. Therefore, love, as an expression of our interconnectedness, cannot be self-centered or based solely on individual desires or needs. Instead, it becomes an expression of a higher principle, the desire for the well-being and flourishing of others as part of the greater whole. By loving another, we are not just loving an individual in isolation, but we are participating in the cosmic order, aligning ourselves with the forces that unite all of humanity. When we love in this way, we move beyond the limitations of self, interest, and ego. The love that is rooted in the recognition of interconnectedness is not possessive or conditional. It is not a love that seeks to control, manipulate, or possess another person. Instead, it is a love that seeks the good of the other, that desires their flourishing and happiness without expecting anything in return. It is a love that sees the beloved not as an object for personal gain, but as a fellow traveler on the journey of life, with their own unique path and their own inherent worth. Moreover, this understanding of love as an expression of interconnectedness invites us to see love as something that transcends personal relationships. If all things are interconnected, then the love we extend to others is not limited to those closest to us. Stoicism teaches us that we should extend our love not only to family and friends, but to all people, recognizing their shared place in the cosmic order. Love, in this sense, is a universal force, one that is not confined to any one individual or group, but is extended to all, regardless of race, gender, nationality, or any other distinction that might otherwise divide us. In this way, the Stoic love is a love that transcends the personal and moves toward the universal, recognizing that all human beings are part of the same larger whole. This perspective on love can also help us navigate the challenges of human relationships. Often, love becomes a source of conflict when it is seen as something that can be owned or controlled. When we view love as something that exists within the boundaries of a single relationship, or as something that belongs exclusively to one person, we run the risk of creating attachments that are not only possessive, but also fragile. The Stoic view of love as part of the greater cosmic order, however, allows us to love without clinging. We recognize that while we may form deep and meaningful connections with others, these connections are still part of a greater whole, a vast interconnected web of relationships that extends beyond any single one of us. By loving in this way, we free ourselves from the fear of loss, for we understand that love is not confined to any single person or relationship. It is a universal force, one that flows through all things and connects us all. Furthermore, this broader understanding of love encourages a sense of gratitude and humility. When we love in recognition of the interconnectedness of all things, we develop a deeper appreciation for the role that others play in our lives. We recognize that we are not isolated beings, but part of a larger network of relationships and experiences that shape our lives. Each person we encounter, each relationship we form, is part of the larger cosmic order, and they contribute to our growth and development. Love, then, becomes a form of gratitude, a recognition of the beauty and interconnectedness of all life, and an expression of our deep appreciation for the part that others play in our journey. Finally, love as an expression of interconnectedness invites us to act with compassion and empathy. When we recognize that we are all part of the same greater whole, we are more likely to treat others with kindness, understanding, and respect. We understand that the suffering of one is the suffering of all, and that the joy of one is the joy of all. This perspective allows us to approach love not as something to be hoarded or protected, but as something to be shared, extended, and given freely. It teaches us that love is not a zero-sum game where one person's gain is another's loss, but a force that multiplies and grows when shared. The more love we give, the more love we receive, because we are all part of the same cosmic whole. In conclusion, the Stoic understanding of love as an expression of interconnectedness offers a profound and transformative way to approach relationships. It encourages us to love not from a place of self-interest, but from a place of recognition of our shared humanity and our place within the larger cosmic order. This kind of love is universal, selfless, and unconditional. It seeks the good of others without expecting anything in return. By loving in this way, we not only enrich our own lives, but also contribute to the greater harmony of the world, participating in the cosmic order that unites us all. One of the most significant teachings of Stoic philosophy is the concept of inner peace, or apatheia, which is often misunderstood as emotional detachment or indifference. In truth, apatheia refers to a state of emotional resilience. condition where we are not controlled or disturbed by the ups and downs of external circumstances. It is a state of clarity and composure, where we are able to maintain our inner tranquility, regardless of the chaotic events happening around us. This principle is deeply relevant to love, for true love, from a Stoic perspective, is not dependent on the external behavior of others or the circumstances surrounding the relationship. Rather, it is rooted in a deep sense of inner stability and emotional maturity, allowing us to love in a way that is steady, enduring, and unshaken by external events. In relationships, love can often be subject to turbulence. We may face moments of uncertainty, disappointment, or conflict, and these experiences can shake our emotional foundation if we are not grounded in apatheia. The Stoics teach that we are responsible for how we react to external events, and thus our emotions are not to be seen as uncontrollable forces that sweep us away. Instead, we have the power to govern our responses, to approach love with a sense of composure, and to prevent our feelings from becoming overly influenced by the behavior or actions of others. This does not mean that we should suppress our emotions, nor does it imply that love should be devoid of passion or affection. Rather, Stoic love asks us to be fully present in our feelings, while recognizing that love is a conscious, reasoned choice rather than a passive reaction. We experience love deeply, but we also retain control over how we allow those emotions to shape our thoughts and actions. This emotional balance allows us to love more freely and without fear, knowing that our happiness is not dependent on any one person or circumstance. By cultivating apatheia, we can love without becoming overly attached, and we can weather the storms of life with resilience and grace. In practical terms, this means that when we love someone, we do so with the awareness that their actions, behaviors, or even emotions are beyond our control. We can offer them our affection, support, and care, but we cannot dictate how they will respond or how their feelings will evolve. The Stoic approach to love is one of acceptance and understanding, acknowledging that we cannot always predict or control the course of a relationship. We learn to embrace the unpredictability of life and love without allowing it to destabilize us emotionally. When challenges arise, we are less likely to react with frustration, jealousy, or fear, and instead, we are able to respond with calm, patience, and understanding. Furthermore, apatheia in love also allows us to avoid the common pitfalls of attachment and dependence. In modern relationships, it is often easy to become overly attached, to tie our sense of worth and happiness to the person we love. We may become fearful of losing them, anxious about their feelings toward us, or dependent on their actions for our own emotional fulfillment. The Stoics, however, teach us that such attachments can lead to suffering, as they are based on external factors that are not within our control. By cultivating inner peace, we learn to love freely without placing our happiness solely in the hands of another. Our love becomes an offering, not a demand, and we approach the relationship with a sense of balance and emotional independence. This does not mean that we withdraw from emotional investment, nor does it suggest that we stop caring deeply for the person we love. On the contrary, Stoic love is a love that is fully present, but also fully aware of the impermanence of life and relationships. We understand that change is inevitable, and that the person we love may not always be the same, just as we ourselves are always evolving. Love, in this sense, becomes an act of acceptance, where we honor the other person as they are, without trying to change them or hold onto them in ways that would hinder their growth. We do not seek to possess them, but to support them in their own journey, understanding that their well-being is as important as our own. Moreover, Apatheia in love teaches us to cultivate compassion and empathy without becoming overwhelmed by the emotions of others. In relationships, we often find ourselves deeply affected by the struggles or pain of the person we love. While it is natural to feel for them, the Stoic approach asks us to avoid becoming engulfed by their emotions. Instead, we are encouraged to maintain emotional clarity, to offer support and guidance, but not to allow ourselves to be consumed by the turmoil that may be affecting our partner. By maintaining apatheia, we remain strong and steady, able to offer love and support in a way that is constructive and healing, rather than reactive or overbearing. In addition, the Stoic practice of apatheia allows us to love with the understanding that love itself is an act of virtue, not a means to an end. Love is not about seeking to receive something in return, nor is it about pursuing personal desires. It is about acting in accordance with our highest values, striving to love in a way that is rooted in wisdom, justice, and temperance. By practicing apatheia, we free ourselves from the fear of loss, rejection, or disappointment because we are no longer attached to the outcomes. Love becomes a choice, a reflection of our own character and virtues, rather than a reaction to external circumstances. In conclusion, apatheia offers us the emotional resilience needed to love deeply, but without being overwhelmed by the inevitable challenges and uncertainties of relationships. It allows us to maintain our inner peace, to love without clinging, and to engage with our partners in a way that is grounded in wisdom and virtue. Through the practice of apatheia, love becomes not a source of emotional turmoil, but a steady force that nurtures both our own well-being and that of the person we love. It is a love that is not contingent on external circumstances, but is sustained by our inner strength, self-awareness, and commitment to living virtuously. In conclusion, the Stoic philosophy offers a profound and transformative way to approach love, one that transcends the fleeting passions and emotional turbulence that often define human relationships. At its core, Stoic love is rooted in virtue, rationality, emotional resilience, and a deep understanding of our interconnectedness with the world and others. It teaches us that love is not simply a reaction to external stimuli, but a conscious, deliberate practice that aligns with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Through the lens of Stoicism, love becomes a means of personal growth, as both partners strive to cultivate virtue and encourage one another's flourishing. It is not possessive or dependent on external circumstances, but an expression of selflessness where the well-being of the other is prioritized. Stoic love teaches us to navigate the complexities of human emotions, to respond with clarity and composure, and to love without attachment, without fear of loss, and without the need for constant validation. In loving this way, we are better able to accept and appreciate our partner for who they truly are, rather than for who we wish them to be. We come to understand that love is not about ownership, but about supporting one another's growth, while recognizing that all relationships, like all things in life, are subject to change. Love grounded in Stoic principles is neither fragile nor fleeting. It is enduring, resilient, and capable of weathering the challenges that life inevitably presents. Ultimately, Stoic love is a love that enhances both our own lives and the lives of those we care about, not by seeking to control, possess, or cling, but by striving to act with wisdom, understanding, and compassion. It teaches us that love is not just an emotion to be felt, but a virtue to be practiced, a force that connects us to others, to the greater whole of humanity, and to the cosmos itself. Through this perspective, love becomes an enduring and transformative force, one that elevates the human spirit and enables us to live with greater purpose, integrity, and peace.